that's good. You got to flip. Oh, that's better. Okay. You guys are here before me. I'm all messed up with the time change. Is that better? That seems better. It wasn't dark enough, so I got all confused. We'll start in a minute. Let's see. Hi, Emily. I'm glad you're all here with me. I'm glad you're all not messed up with the time change like I am. Go figure. What's the matter, Virginia? Me and the time change? It just wasn't dark enough, so I didn't realize it. But here I am. Hi, Brenda. Okay. We're going to start. I'm sure we'll have more. Maybe a time change thing. I know a bunch of people are prepped and ready to go. So, let's see. All right. Well, Terry, I hope you're here. Hi, Mary. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do your background. I'll do it on this one. So, I know that some of you weren't sure, and one of the girls asked me to demo how I get my two colors. So I'm going to take, now pretend this is based bleach sand, okay? I'll take a little bit of bleach sand and I'll take a little bit of burnt umber. And I just take a big, I call them my crappy brushes. They're just old brushes. And you can do anything with them. So I don't throw away any of my brushes. I use them for base coating. I use them for slip slapping. I use them for all of that stuff. Hi, Bev. Thank you for being here. Okay, so pretend that this is already bleach sand. We're just going to take our brush and we're going to again base it in bleach sand so that it's wet again. I have bleach sand on my brush and I'm going to pick up burnt umber and I'm just going to lightly pull it through. And you see how some areas get darker and some get lighter? If it gets too dark, just pick up bleach sand and drag some in. I'm just lightly dragging back and forth. So what that's doing, hi Liz. So what that's doing is that's giving me the base of my wood grain, okay? And that's all I do. And when you do the whole thing, let me just, I have to wipe this, otherwise it gets all over. That gives me, you see how some areas are darker and some are lighter? And that's all I did, okay? Now, I came in with a rigger and I just painted these slats. These are darker than my original, but so what I did is I took my rigger, and I'll give you where you should be, all right? And I'm going to flatten my rigger. And when you paint straight lines, whenever you paint straight lines, use this part of your hand and move your whole hand. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to pull down. I'm on paper, which is why it's not pulling. But I'm moving my whole hand. I'm not anchoring my hand and moving my brush, because that never works. So I'm moving my whole hand. Okay? Can you do this part after? Of course you can. You can tape it off if you want to. Okay, now, when I paint knots, when I paint wood, I always put knots in. It's like a really big thing for me. So, I'm going to bring in a little bit of a darker wood grain, and I'm going to bring in some knots. Okay? I'm also going to shade my edges. I'm going to shade behind my eggs to pull them up. I'm going to shade outside the hole. Okay, we got a lot to get done tonight. So, we're going to float. And we're going to, it's called back shading. So you're going to come with your paint towards the element you're pulling up. And you're going to float around it. Try to stay off the eggs. Now if you were doing this not with me, I would say do it before you base coat, because it's much easier to not have to touch up. But it's not a problem to do it now. Here. And you see how now I've just pulled the eggs off of the background, and I'm using long strokes. It's a lot of floating in this piece. Okay. Now we have to stay out of the area that we just did, so I can't do the edges because they're wet. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll float around the design. Let's come outside the element, and I am way too wet. So if you're too wet, you're going to get this halo here. So the answer to that is just take your paper towel and blot like that. Don't try to wipe it this way. If you wipe it this way, you're going to get that line. And that's just me brushing. So just an up and down pit pat. And that'll take off the halo. Okay, so we'll come outside here. Now I can see if you look on an angle, I'm still wet here, so I'm just going to stay where I am. Okay, so I'm here. I'm going to come outside here. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating the depth of this piece. So as you're doing yours and as I'm doing mine, you have to remember that dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing the background down and pulling the bunny up. Okay. So here. Here, and I'm right up against my design. Okay, I need to be right up against it. So here, and if you look, I'm going to show you something. So I have another one because I offered it to somebody, and she's a bunny thing. So if you see here, you see how these are flat and they don't pop off the background. Same thing here. By floating outside of them, I pulled the eggs up, and I pulled the bunny butt up. You see the difference? I don't know if I can get it all on one screen. Hi Carla. Hi everybody, thank you all for being here. By the way, if you have questions, ask me. I will try to pay attention to the comments here and there. If I miss it, ask me again, and I will go back after class and I will answer them. Okay, so you see the difference? Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to quickly, I'm going to pop to a bigger brush. I'm still in Burnt Umber. And I'm going to come outside. That's a bad float, huh? I'm going to come outside. I'm not going to go down the sides yet because I'm not dry. So I'm floating outside the edge. And we have plenty to do, but you see how now my whole piece looks more dimensional? Oh, Carla, you're on Long Island? I'm on Long Island. You're on Texas and Long Island? Okay, you gotta tell me which one. Okay, so now to make my wood grain. The thing about wood grain is you kind of have to remember the float goes towards each other. It starts thin, gets thick, then gets thin. So if I want to knot, I'm thin, I'm going to bow out, and I'm going to come down. My paint is towards the center of my knot. Hey, Shirley. Okay, then I'm going to flip. Oops. Watch it, you don't put your finger in your float. I'm going to do the same thing here. My paint is towards here. So I'm thin right up against it. I'm going to get thick, and then I'm going to get thin again. That is how you make a knot. Okay, now does it always have to bow out on both sides? No. Think of a piece of wood that has a knot in it. We're in Long Island, Carla. That's where we are. Okay, so I'm here. I may come straight. My paint is, think of it towards the bunny. And then I'll flip. And then I'll come, I start together, and then I bow out. I need more water on my brush, huh? And I'll bow out, and I'll make another knot. Okay? Either knot is fine. You can have knots wherever you want. Hey, Marie. Okay, I will also pull some, I'll just float in some dark areas of wood grain. They don't all have to be knots, but you gotta have some darker areas of wood grain. Now sometimes you just make those areas when you do your background. Here, it doesn't go the whole length. No, we don't want one there. I was going to put a knot there, but I don't think so. So we'll come here. Let's add a knot here. I always do things in odd numbers, so we'll have a little knot there. And then we'll just bring some wood grain. And I've just created, I've gone from this, which is my flat wood, to this with a couple of floats. I'm going to do my side edges, but I've back shaded behind my eggs to pull them up. I've back shaded behind my bunny. and I've created some wood grain. Okay. Now we're going to come in. I'm in Burnt Umber, Stephanie. I have not gone out of Burnt Umber yet. So all our back shading, all our wood grain is all Burnt Umber. I'm going to come in. And now I'm going to shade right up along the edge. Make sure the wood grain you just did or the knots is dry or you'll pull it off. And I'll flip. And always remember, if you remember that the reason we use dark is to make the item recede, you will know which way your paint goes. In this case, my paint is going towards the outside. And I'm pulling in long strokes. I'm not making choppy strokes like this. They're long strokes. See how dimensional I am? Let's get this out of your way. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to show you some modeling paste. I don't know if I gave you modeling paste to do. So while that's drying for a second, I'm just going to show you. And you do not have to do this. You can just tap your bunny tail on. I took modeling paste. I mixed a little bit of bleached sand into it. It just saves you a step from base coating it. I just took my palette knife see if you can see this. You can see that. And I just come in and I kind of squish it around and I would leave some texture in there. Yeah, you can see that. So you see, and I just here, and I just let it sit and dry. Now, all that does, as you can see, it gives me a 3D tail. Do you have to have a 3D tail? No. You can just tap it in. So if you don't have modeling paste, don't worry about it. It's fine. You can just use a deer foot or your brush and just tap, tap, tap. Right, so now I got all my brown on. So beautiful, right? Okay. Now let's take some bleached sand and finish up our wood grain. And again, these are just real simple floats that'll change your piece. So we'll come in and we'll add a little in the center here, just opposite. Don't do both sides or you'll create, it'll be too light. And we'll just bring some in. And then just like we did the dark wood grain here, we'll just come in and we'll float some areas of light. No rhyme or reason, just bring them in. What this is giving us is the different colors and textures in a piece of wood. I'm just going to come in. I know my hand's right in your way, I'm sorry. I kind of darned if I do and darned if I don't, because I'm either upside down or my hand's in your way. So, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're here. And we're just bringing some in. Don't make a pattern. Don't do dark light, dark light, dark light. Okay? And we have beautiful wood. We've just used a couple of techniques and made beautiful wood. Okay? So that was bleached sand. Everything before that was burnt umber. Let me just touch up his butt. Now if you got burnt umber on his butt, just quickly touch it up with the bleached sand, because that's what color he's base coated. And I'm very messy when I paint, so that's just a simple touch up. Okay, so let's paint some designs. Let's shade a bunny. Let's shade a bunny. We are going to use uniform blue. Oh, just my Etsy site, Debbie. Which I've been trying to be a little better at. The paperwork part of my job is the part that I hate. I just want to teach everybody how to paint. Okay. So, remember what I said, that dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So we want to take his body and push it down and pull his feet up because he's going into the hole. Now I should have said, I use a 14 chisel blender when I float, and I do that because it's got shorter bristles. So it's easier to control a brush with shorter bristles than longer. Okay, Shirley, we're using uniform blue to float. You do, Liz, you don't have to put it in yet, so don't worry about it. We'll put it in, I'll touch it up when you're doing it, so don't worry about it. So let's come outside the feet. I don't know, my brush is not flowing tonight. Oh, there we go, that's better. The one thing I want you to be really, really sure of when you float, because it really makes a difference. When you painted, here's where your feet hit the body. Make sure you're no matter where you drew your lines, make sure you're coming from those points. Otherwise, your feet won't make sense. Okay? And anybody who didn't paint your foot pads, don't worry about it. I'm going to touch them up, and as I'm touching mine up, you'll be painting yours, so it's no big deal. I honestly didn't remember if I did it or if I was supposed to do it or not, which is not atypical for me. Okay. I'm coming outside, and if you see when I'm floating, my brush is all the way down. Now, if you see when I transferred on my pattern, my line came to here. If I came to here, I would be on the foot. So I just moved it to here. And then what I'll do is when it's dry, I'll erase that. Okay? So don't worry about that. But what's important is that you're hitting these points. That's the most important thing. Now, if I'm going too fast for anybody, just tell me. Hey, Dolores. Sometimes in the beginning I go really fast because I do. Okay. Now we're going to take a float. And this is probably why I didn't have you paint your foot pads. We're going to push down the front of his foot. So my float is towards the bottom of the foot, and I'm going to just go right there. My floats are heavy today. Yeah. And what that's doing is it's pushing that part of his foot down so it doesn't look like it's glued on. Try not to be as blue as me. I don't know, I'm having issues. Which is not atypical. Okay. So now what I've done is I've started to create dimension on my bunny. But remember what I said is while we're wet and we had to jump around here, if I come under the tail or I come and finish the body, I'm going to pull off what I've done. So I'm just going to bump down here. Okay. Now, you can use any color you want. Okay. Any color that's in our design is fair game. Okay. So I always, not always, but most of the time I put my designs on my eggs or my Christmas ornaments or whatever I'm decorating. Let me just touch these up. So you see how I got brown here? Which is why you, if you were doing this alone, you just base coat it after you back shade. And that's banana cream. And nobody asked me about colors, so I think everybody had their colors. If you don't have your colors before class, just pick colors and pick a darker color and a lighter value to shade and highlight with. You could have made these any colors you wanted. I wanted them to be Eastery, which is why I picked pastels. Okay. So now, and we're going to go through these. You can do them my way, you can do them your way. You can do any designs you want, okay? I often have people, they do hearts, they do something that's important to them. You could write Happy Easter on the center one instead of having an egg. You can write 2021. I don't know why I was going to say 2012, but I was. Okay, so I'm going to use a liner. My purple egg, my first design. Now, like I said, you can do anything you want. I'm going to do a dot, and then I'm going to pull like designs out. So I'm going to do pressure and up. So it gets thinner when it comes out. So can you see what I'm doing? Okay, so make sure I'm on camera. You're a little delayed, so I'm here and I'm pulling. And I'm here and I'm pulling. And I'm here and I'm pulling. And I'm here and I'm pulling. Now the one thing I will tell you is you never know how big this is going to end up, so don't put dots all over. Do them one by one, because otherwise you could have a dot here and it's too close and you can't make your flower. Now if you don't like my flower, I would get insulted, but I won't see it, so go in and do whatever makes you happy, seriously. I know, that's a bad one, huh? You can do stencils. I know sometimes people like stencils. Vicki, they will be Cactus Flower, but you don't have to do them yet. When I touch them up, then you can do them then. And this is just my own little version of a fun flower. And sometimes they're thicker than others. Now, I have this area here that would drive me crazy. So I'll put my center there. And I'll pull a half a flower. Okay. I'm just trying to think. Oh, I did. I was doing a Christmas ornament, and it had a whole bunch of balls. And I just played with designs. whatever made me happy. Every day I find something else makes me happy. So one day it might be diamonds, one day it might be flowers. It doesn't matter. This is not a right wrong thing. This is what makes you happy. But I am putting my designs on before I shade them because I want the design to be part of the egg as opposed to on top of the egg. So sometimes you want them to be on top, but more often than not, they are on. So we took all that time for that design. Okay. My next design I did in Wisteria. And I did diamonds. Now, I cheat when I do my diamonds. You can take your liner and you can just do 1, 2, 3, 4 and fill it in. Okay. To me, it's just too much work, but you absolutely can. I take my rigger and I flatten my rigger just a little bit so that I have a small flat, and then I just come in, let me just do it a little bit wider, and I'll just come in and stroke. So now I have my diamond. Okay, I do them in different directions. There. You could do polka dots. Polka dots are fun. I guess I just wasn't in a polka dot mood when I did this, but I do polka dots a lot. And I do big polka dots. I like big polka dots. Okay. But, like I said, whatever designs you use are not wrong. Whatever colors you use are not wrong. Do what makes you happy. If you're giving it to somebody, like I know Emily, you're giving it to somebody, you could put the, whatever their last name is, the Smiths. Debbie, pick up from where we are and then go back and do the rest of it. Okay? Because you can do that. So that's how I do my diamonds, which they look like lopsided diamonds, but that's okay. Cactus Flower. Next I do Cactus Flower. I'm just glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're all here with me. Spring has sprung. Almost. Not New York. And Peggy, you must be nice and warm. I woke up this morning, it was 20 degrees. I'm like, oh my goodness. Thought we were past this. Okay, so when I use my liner, straight up and down will give you a nice thin line. Let me do that in blue. I don't know. Oh, I know I have the blue out. Nice. If I'm straight up and down, I'm just using the tip of my bristles. If I lay it back in my hand, I will get a thicker line. Okay, that's the difference in how you get a thin and a thick line with a liner. Hi, Linda. Thank you for coming. Okay, so I'm going to take my Cactus Flower and my liner, and I'm diagonal. I'm going to do 3 diagonal lines. when you use a liner, always thin your paint so that it flows. I'm going to skip a space, a good size space, and then I'll do 3 more. Again, you don't have to follow my designs. You do not have to follow my colors. Okay. And then you come in, and I'm going to skip a space. And remember what I said, I'm pulling with my whole hand. I'm not holding my hand stationary. So here, my whole hand is moving. And once you get your first line in, then just follow the direction of that line so that they're all going the same direction. Okay. My next one, I'm going to do banana cream. And I'm going to do swirls, which I do almost all the time because they make me smile. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to swirl. You're delayed a minute, so I just want to make sure that you can see that. And if you can't, let's see. Oh, there you go. And you see how I'm just coming in and I'm just swirling. And I'm swirling. And I'm swirling. And I just love those swirls. So I do them a lot. Oh, thank you, Linda. All right, Debbie. I don't feel so bad for myself now. I've been not happy because it's been yucky colds. Okay. I'm going to go back to my rig or my bleached sand. I'm going to make some plaid. Now, I'm going to follow the edge of the egg. And I want to tell you something about plaid. Let me just get this in and I will thin it so that it's not as heavy as this. That's better. When you do, now this is just unrelated because this you're kind of just putting in and you're kind of just moving your brush. But a funny thing about plaid, when people do plaid, here's an egg. Oh, that's a bad looking egg, huh? Okay. So if you wanted your plaid to be perfect, you come in, you measure your lines, and you draw your lines. Okay? So there's some lines. What people tend to do, and this is just a tip so that you know, is they go right down the center of the line. You will never get directly down the center from here to here. It just never works. Whenever you paint plaid, and this is really, really important, whenever you paint plaid, and you're drawing your lines, come outside the left side or the right side. Okay? Just be consistent. So you're outside, left side and the right side, and then when you do the cross, you do the horizontal lines above or below. It doesn't make any difference. Just be consistent. And that will give you your correct spacing. If you come down the middle, you will never come straight down the middle the whole way. You will come right against your line the whole way. So that will give you perfect plaid. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's a really important plaid tip. Okay, so those are the designs I have. Do you have to have those designs? No. And I can't say that enough. Hey, Eileen. Okay. So we'll go back to our uniform blue. And we'll go back to our bunny because he's dry. And I want to pull up my tail. Now, if you did not put in your tail, or you're not going to use modeling paste, just float outside where you're going to put a tail. So, here's your tail. Oh wait, let's do it this way. Here's your bunny. Here's your hole. Here's your feet. Okay? Just come in, take your blue, and just float under where you're making a tail. Paint is towards where you're going to put the tail. Okay? Because then we'll just tap it in and you'll still have your shading there. Okay? And then we're going to come and we're going to float the bottom of his body between his feet. The paint is down. I'm going to come right here. Okay. And we're going to give that a minute to dry. We're going to go back to our eggs. Are you all keeping up with me? Hopefully. Now, if we remember what we want the dark to push it down. So this egg is on top. This is behind this is behind this is behind this, and this is behind this. So what we're doing is the first thing we have to do is we have to separate. I want to push this egg below this egg. So I'm going to take some uniform blue. And we're going to float. We'll be a little bit on the side. And then we're going to come outside this egg. Okay. And we're going to push that down. Okay. We have more shading to do, but what we're doing is right now we're separating. That's with the uniform blue, the same color we shaded here. Now we need burnt orange for here. You only need little bits of paint. That's all you need. And we're going to float where the orange egg falls behind the green egg. So we're going to come and we're going to float right there. And we're going to push this egg behind this egg. And right now it's going to look a little strange until we get to where we need to. We're going to take out some Dioxazine purple and some antique gold. And I will show you how to do a tail if you didn't do it in modeling paste. So do not worry. Oops. I'm going to flip so that you can see. And I always pull towards me. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my antique gold. And I'm going to separate here. And then I'm going to use my Dioxazine. Use the right color, it would be okay, huh? If anybody has any questions, just ask me. No one has. You've all been so quiet tonight. And we're here. Now you can see that I've separated my eggs. And if you have paint where you don't want it, just take a damp Q-tip. Buy your Q-tips at the dollar store because they have less cotton on them, so they don't drag the paint all over the place. Thank you, Donna. Okay. So while that's drying, let's come in. Let's base our foot pads. So I'm going to use Cactus Flower. If you don't have Cactus Flower, which is one of the new colors from last year or the year before, I don't remember, you can use Vintage Pink, another newer color. You can use Cotton Candy. I don't use Cotton Candy because Cotton Candy, for me, is a very bright pink, and I'm not a big bright pink person. Okay. And we'll come in and we'll base, and I'm just touching up, so. And I'm doing it so that I can kind of time how long it's going to take you to do it. You can transfer your lines back in, or you can just wing it. And we'll come in. And mine are not overly round. Oh, that's what I used. Okay. And we're here. And I'll give you a minute to do that. So I'm going to touch these up. I'm going to give you a minute to do that, and then we'll talk about what we've done. Now we're not done with our eggs. And here's another thing. I'm not big on an eraser. I use Turpenoid, okay? It's odorless Turpenoid, not turpentine, Turpenoid. And I always wipe my piece down before I varnish it. And I do that, and it'll take off all the graphite here. Anything that's not under paint. And I don't get those marks from the eraser. I have little things that drive me crazy. I tried to contact you, but how do we get the pattern to transfer on the surface? Okay, Linda, here's what I will tell you. My line drawings for library pieces are on my Facebook 2 weeks before class. They come down the night of class. Then they become pattern packets that I sell. But on my Facebook, I put a flyer with the date, the prep, the paints, and everything else. And then the very first comment, you may have to scroll up, depending on how many comments end up there. And if you scroll up, it's the very first comment. So as of right now, it's still there. I will take it down after class tonight. So I'll give you a half hour or so after to do it. And I didn't get your email because if I did, I would have answered you. And if anybody ever emails me, if you get my email from the library, which is fine, make sure you put something paint related in the subject, or I don't even open them. I get a lot of email a day. Why? I don't know. But I do. And a lot of it is junk, and so if it's not paint related, I honestly don't open them. So I'm sorry I didn't respond to you, but I didn't get it. And I'm really good at responding. Most times anyway. So you should all be where I am now. Your pink should be in. I took a long time to paint my pink. Okay, now, something I want to show you that's really, really important. And then we'll get back to the eggs. When you have anything, in this case my bunny's butt, we've come here and we've come here and we have this very harsh edge here. You would never have that harsh edge. So what you have to do is you have to come in, and we're in uniform blue. All right, Linda, it's on my Facebook page, and it's the very first comment. So you have to scroll up to the very first. You have to keep hitting previous comments, all the way up. Okay, so you see the difference between this corner and this corner? This looks natural, as if it's going down. This looks very harsh. So all I did was come in with my paint towards this corner, and I'm rounding out that corner. Okay? And that makes all the difference. And that's with anything you do. You never want these very harsh V's. Okay? And you'll see the same thing on the egg. Now, we're going to float the bottom of the tail, but I'm going to show you. Okay, so use a Deerfoot or use an old brush and get some white. And if you're tapping in and you're not using modeling paste, you can do it this way. So here's my bunny butt. When you have a Deerfoot, it's because it looks like a Deerfoot. The long end is called the toe, the short end is called the heel. You're going to load the toe in Bleached Sand, which is the lighter color. I always do the lighter color on the toe and the darker end on the heel. Okay. You're going to come in, you're going to load. You're going to put a little bit of blue on the heel. Can you see that? And then you're just going to tap a little. And then you're going to come in on your piece, and you're going to keep the blue to the bottom. You won't even have to, you won't even have to float. And you're just going to create that tail. So you see how I just created that bunny tail? So if you didn't use modeling paste, that's all you have to do to get your tail. Now, if you have modeling paste, you can still tap. Yes, yes, Linda, it's not on the library's page. It's on my personal page. It's not on the library page because it goes to a paid packet after class tonight. All right, so when you're here, if you have modeling paste, you can do it the same way and load the same way, Bleached Sand and the uniform, and just tap to shade the bottom, or you can just come in and float along the bottom and just do it that way. Okay, don't make it too dark. And he's got a cute little tail. Let's go back to the eggs. So now what I want to do is I want to push the eggs so that they're more dimensional. When you have an egg, if it's, okay, let me do it with this. Here's a bottle. If I shade here and here, my piece goes down. If I shade here and not here, I tilt it. Okay? Oh, the Deerfoot. It's the Deerfoot you haven't used, Linda? Deerfoot's a great brush. But make sure you use the Deerfoot dry. Don't use the Deerfoot wet. Okay, so then if I push down here and pull, so now I'm tilted. And being tilted, it's giving us more dimension. So we're going to come back in our same shading colors. I'm going to start with Dioxazine. And I'm going to shade the bottom of the purple egg. And remember, go with the shape of the egg. It's not a flat float. Okay. Your shading always looks so much more vibrant because the Brenda, it is all about the details. It is all about the details. And the littlest detail will change your whole piece. Okay. Antique golds. We're going to come in and we're going to float the bottom of the yellow egg in antique gold. Now always remember, when you're floating anything, you're floating in the shape of the egg. So the shape of the egg would finish here. So the shape is this way. You wouldn't have a straight line across because that wouldn't make sense. It's always rounded. Okay. And we'll do the green in a minute, but because we have the other colors out, let's do burnt orange. And we're going to float the bottom of, and see, I'm rounding it out, which gives it its dimension. And then we're going to do the same thing on the blue with the uniform blue. And we're going to create our shape with the blue. Now, if you're using a mop, and tonight I am using my mop a lot, which I don't usually, but if you're using your mop, keep in mind when you use a mop, it's gently up and down. You're softening your float. You're not moving your paint. People tend to pull their, like they'll go like this. You never want to do that. You're just softening. So you're ever so lightly. If I have a pressure from 1 to 10, you're probably under 1, so like 0.5. And you're just very lightly tapping to soften. Okay. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. We're moving faster than I thought. Okay. Does everybody have their foot pads in? I know nobody's here to answer me. Sometimes I say things to myself. I really am talking to you all. Let's take some Plantation Pine. And we're going to shade the bottom of the green egg. And remember, the shape is not flat, the shape is rounded. So we're going to come in. And we're going to, this is a big value jump. So make sure you blend it out well. And we're going to shade the bottom of the egg. Now, by doing the designs first, you can see they're part of the egg. They're not on top of the egg, on top of the shading, which is important. Now, my yellow here to me is not dark enough. Oh, I'll show you something a lot of fun, because we're okay. Because people tell me I never tell the truth, but here's an interesting fact. Here is my antique gold. Now, my antique gold is not dark enough. True ochre is darker, but I know a lot of people don't have it, so I didn't put it. So on my piece, it's not dark enough. So the way to change the value of your colors, I'm trying to get the yellow out of my bottle, is to use the complementary color. So without changing the core of the color. So, and it's an interesting thing, I always use purple and yellow, but green and red, blue and, blue and orange are complementary colors. So if I want to take, and I always use purple and yellow, and people tell me I'm wrong, and then they go home and try it. It's really a lot of fun. So if you come in and you take a bit of purple and add it to yellow, I am not going to get mush because it's complementary color. So it will stay the family that it is. Okay, watch what I'm doing. I'm getting a darker yellow. I'm not getting mush. You see that? This is always a fun experiment because people never believe me. But it's fun. And you see how I'm still yellow, which people never believe, but I'm still yellow. I just darkened here's my antique gold, and I just darkened it. And that's because I use the complementary color, okay? And I always use complementary color. If I'm undercoating or anything else, it's always the complementary color. So I'm going to make this just a little bit darker. That's Color Theory 101. Isn't that fun? And I'll come in, and now I have a darker yellow. See that? It's fun, right? I know people struggle with color mixing, but that's how you do it. So if I wanted a darker green, I would add red to it. I would add a dark red. And so on and so forth. I'm just going to make this darker with another float of the same color, because we don't need to mix this. Linda, most people don't think of it, but that's how you keep true color, is to go by your color wheel. And same thing, people undercoat reds all the time, and they undercoat them, they say, undercoat them in pink. Well, that's not necessarily true. You should undercoat red in a light green. And it'll keep your red true red. So you should always have, unless you know your color wheel, you should always have your color wheel with you. It's a really interesting concept. Well, not a concept, it's the way it is. But it'll keep your colors true to color. But I always tell people to do it with purple and yellow, and they tell me I'm crazy. So it's actually a lot of fun. But that was a good thing that we could do that, because we were using those colors. Okay, you need some deep burgundy. And we're going to shade, oops, bottom of your foot pads. With a straight hair in my brush. And like I said, I always use chisel blenders. People think chisel blenders are for oils. And I say, no, they're not. They're for acrylics. Because you have more control over your brush. And I have found when people move to chisel blenders to float, they find it much, much easier to do. Okay, so we're here. And I'm doing the small foot pads first because if I do here first, I risk pulling this brush, over the wet. Okay, and then we'll shade right along the bottom here. We'll get that nice big line off. See how much dimension that gives that? Okay. And then we'll do the other one. Over here. Here. Okay, Debbie, here's a very interesting thing. Brent, I'll look at your comment in a minute, but here's a very interesting thing. The answer to your question is possibly you could add white to highlight. I again go to the complementary color and I just go to a lighter value of the complementary color. Sometimes you can add white and sometimes that's fine. But if you take red and you add white, you don't get a lighter red, you get pink. Okay? So if you take a red and you add very, very light green, you'll stay red. Okay? Sometimes I add white. I'm not a huge white person and I only use warm white. So the answer to that is not always. You have to remember that. And red is a good example of that. Using a chisel blender is a great tip. It works well for me too. I get lots of... now you're dark. Okay. What brand of chisel blender? Okay. Brenda, you're right. Chisel blender is fabulous. Fabulous. That it gives you a lot of control. Kobe, I use Dynasty's Black Gold. I use a 14, number 206, 14 CB. I use, they're really, really good for control. They hold up, and Dynasty stands behind their brushes, which you can't ask for anything more than that. All right, so now let's highlight. Remember, dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So, like I said, I only use warm white. I don't own Snow White and I don't own whitewash. They're just not colors I like. So I use warm white. If I have to highlight warm white, I highlight it with cool white. Okay, but if you don't have warm white and you're okay with Snow White or you're okay with whitewash, by all means, go for it. It's just not a Linda thing. Right, so now we're going to highlight. And remember, dark is to push the item down. Light is to bring it towards us. So we want to push this part of the tail down, and we want to pull up this part of the tail. And I've got a nice red on there. And that, my dears, is because I didn't wash my brush. Bunny's going to have a red tail. Thought I washed my brush. No, I guess not. There we go. much easier to take off when there's no texture there. That's where it is. Okay, so here's another tip. Don't use a dirty mop. If you use a dirty mop, that's where my color's coming from. So you can't get your mop wet, or you can't use it. So you can, on a wet part of your paper towel, see how it's coming out? Or you can use a baby wipe. Baby wipe will take the paint off and you can still use it. But I'm dry. But you see how much came out? That's where that was from. Let me just get this off because, I know I said I rarely use erasers, but I don't want paint over it. Okay. So we'll come in and we'll highlight with warm white. Oh, I didn't even pull out my next piece. I gotta do that, don't I? I'm gonna highlight the top of the feet. I'm going to pull up the top of the feet. You think I'd be more organized today, huh? And you're always wiping out your mop. There we go. Making a mess tonight, aren't I? Now, I want to dry brush my shine. So, I have shines on all my eggs, okay? I use a stencil brush. Let me get a smaller one, because that's what I dry brush with. I use a Dynasty Stencil Pro because they're soft, they're durable. I don't use white bristle dry brushes. So I'm going to pick up some white and make sure when you're rubbing it out on your paper towel you're not in the wet area, because if you're in the wet area you're going to make your brush wet. Scrub it out. Now, when I do my shines, you want your shine in the upper corner. I don't make a polka dot, so I don't, and I know people do, and to each his own. I don't make, so I kind of from side to side, and I kind of just create a shine without creating a shape. I don't want a polka dot on my piece. Polka dot is not natural. So I kind of more from side to side. And here, I'll be here. Now you see how lightly I'm doing this? If I want that shine brighter, I'll go back and do it again. I won't add more paint or keep scrubbing. I'll just go back and do it again. So here. I'll come in and I'll scrub my paint off. These brushes are super durable, so you can scrub the heck out of them. And now I want this brighter, so I'm just going to come in and I'm going to do the same thing. And you see how I'm brighter, but I'm nice and airy. And it doesn't matter if your shine is on the right side or the left side. That doesn't matter. Okay, and we'll do one more thing because we have time, and then I'll show you Thursday's piece, and then I'll show you next month's piece, if I know where it is. Didn't think to take it out. Shame on me. Okay, so now same thing. We want to, we're going to come in with warm white, and we're going to highlight the top of the foot pads. So we'll come in and we're right here, and we're going right across side to side. And that'll give it more dimension than my original. I just didn't think we'd have time, so, but we did. Which is a good thing. And we'll do here. And we'll do here. And we'll do here. And in case you're wondering, I absolutely talk to myself just the same when I'm painting by myself. You would actually get a kick out of it. The whole conversation with myself. Here. And that just gives it a bit more dimension. Just have to add some bleached sand here to get over that red. Okay, so the only thing you have left, if you did not do that's good, we could be good talking to ourselves buddies. I do. I have a whole conversation with myself and float here and do this, and yeah, I have a whole conversation with myself. I'm in my own little worlds. Anybody will tell you that. Is to put these lines in Burnt Umber if you want them, if you didn't put them in. Okay? They can go in after. They don't have to be done. Remember, when you do your knots, your paint is towards each other. So my float, and I need a new brush, so just ignore that. That's coming out. My paint is here. I'll come on this side. My paint is still here, but now it's on this side, and I'll come here. So your paint is towards the knot. Okay? I just came and dragged some random wood grain in there. Okay? That's your whole piece. Now, we get done early. All right. Thursday is our beginner class. This is our Thursday class. This piece I bought at Dollar Tree. Some of you have been able to find it. Some of you have not. If you're not able to find it, just take the line drawing and put it on a canvas or something else. Okay? On this piece, I'll go over floating and dry brushing, and we're gonna do a deerfoot here with 2 colors. So I'll go over technique in the beginner class. And next month, which is April, let me just see if it's here, because I totally forgot. Oh, you may be out. That's May. I don't know what April is. So, I know what May is. I don't know what April is. April's got to be a flower. But I don't know what it is. So, my suggestion is tune in Thursday. I will figure out what it is, and then I will have it here for Thursday. And then I'll show you all of that. And I'll show you the beginner piece for, I'll show you, You know what? On Thursday, this is Thursday at 7, library Facebook page, I will show you both April pieces. Okay? I don't know why I don't even remember what it is. I know May. All right, so let me just flop you around. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, Emily. Wait, let me put you back up here. I just saw your comment. Yes, let's go over how to make knots again. Okay, so here's a quick knot demo because it's not 8:30. So we're going to float. Knots are thin at the top, they get wider, and then they get thin again. Paint towards the center of the knot, and we'll go back. Thin, paint is towards the center, and they get wider, and they come back. There's your knot. Aw, thanks, Debbie. That was good. I know I'm not on camera now. I'll do it again for you. You're on a delay, so I don't always know that I'm off camera. Thin, thick, paint is towards the center. Thin, thick, paint is towards the center. That's all there is to a knot. This should be thinner down here. That's all there is to a knot. Okay? Anybody who gets stuck, let me know. I will answer all your comments on here, so the answers will be here in case you need to go back and learn them. I will see you all. Yeah, let me pop over. You can see my messy studio. Oh, there I am. Okay, so thank you all for being here. Happy Monday. I will see you all Thursday. And if you need me in the meantime, you can Facebook me, or you can contact the library and they'll get in touch with me. All right. Thank you all for being here. Have a good night.